Good morning, Mauricio. Thanks for visiting our new office. We are very excited to have you here.
Good morning, Ryan. Really happy to be here. Thanks for the hospitality.
Maybe you can share with us a little bit about your background, industry background, right, and your role and your team within Blackstone.
I've always loved security, even since I was a 12 or 13-year-old kid. But I've been doing cybersecurity for 10 years professionally. I started my career as a penetration tester, and then I moved on to the blue team to defending things 7 or 8 years ago, actually when I started at Blackstone. And now at Blackstone, I'm a vice president of threat management, and I run the threat management team. And my team is composed by 10 security practitioners, and we work across what I would say the most important security services that a company needs, such as vulnerability management, penetration testing, threat intelligence, security operations, incident response.
So maybe you can share with us, how you see continuous security validation.
Of course, continuous validation is a really important task for us. You don't really know if a tool is working unless you test it, right? Things could break. People make mistakes. Technologies stop working. So for us, continuous validation is a really important part of the program. And that's where Pentera comes in, right? Pentera is helping us in this continuous validation. One thing that we've had always challenges with is confirming that some controls are working. So for example, one big risk that we've seen in our network is LLMNR and NetBIOS spoofing, name spoofing. So we hire third-party consultants that come into our network and confirm if they're not really working or not. But we can only hire them, once a year, twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. But what if these controls stop working, in the middle of the year? So that's when Pentera comes in. We're able to use Pentera to go into specific parts of our network and confirm if we don't have any hashes just flying around the network waiting for an attacker to grab them and reuse them. Another way that we leverage continuous validation and Pentera is confirming our security hardening controls are working. Once again, we have specific configurations on all our endpoints that reduce the attack vector for attackers, right? Once again, same problem. We have a change window every Friday. What happens if one of our sysadmins just makes one mistake and for some reason our firewalls, host-based firewalls, stop working, right? We don't know that unless we are really testing it. So with Pentera, we have a set of actions running on a frequent basis that allow us to confirm if these controls are actually working or not.
You're lucky enough to have red team internally and being able to have external red teams, but the ability to automate and have continuous testing and validation really frees your time to do the higher level, more specific red team exercises.
That's right. I think one big challenge is, how often you do these assessments. Like I was saying, we can only get to hire external consultants 1, 2, 3 times a year, right? On top of that, if I give the task to one of the members of my team to do this, that's time that we are taking from other tasks that we need to prioritize, right? So the ability to just to go to the platform and with a few clicks configure certain actions to run on a scheduled basis frees up time from my team to focus on other priorities, to focus on maybe on more complex red team attacks, and be able to run the program without having to focus on the repetitive tasks that are consuming our time.
And that's a great use case, and what we've seen, it's an unfair kind of balance to be on the blue team, right, on the prevention and detection side, because I'm as the attacker can attack you for 1,000,000 times and you're really good, you block me 100% of the time, but then the next time that I try and you have even single, tiny misconfiguration, I'm in, now it flips, right? So now your goal is to try to detect me, my goal is try to be under the radar and really try to get to the crown jewels, right? So the ability to do ongoing validation, make sure there are no misconfiguration, good network hygiene, it's a key use case for your organization.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that attackers that are motivated, well resourced, have all the time to attack us, and we need to make sure that our controls are working every single day, not just 3 times that we do the pen test, just every single day. So that's key, and that's a big part of our program.
Yeah, and also night and weekend, right? So we've seen a very good use case for our customers, right? Not just look at what happens during the day, but really schedule, right, tasks to run overnight, run over weekend, really test, right, across the network, across different times, really make sure there are limit the attack surface and minimize the exposure, and really do that on an ongoing basis, provide lots of value.
Yeah, unfortunately, in our world, the attackers have the advantage, usually, because they, like you said, they only have to be right once, and we have to be right all the time, right? So continuous validation, continuous security testing helps us in this, big challenge of being on top of attackers, of being on top of all the attack vectors that there are to potentially breach a network, and be sure that the controls that you have deployed, where you have spent all your money and all the effort in configuring and deploying, actually work as intended.
Right, and I think the next step is, right, assuming that a motivated attacker will be able to get access to the endpoint, normally through a phishing email, right? Someone clicks on this link, the attacker has a foothold on a certain endpoint, right? The next goal for you as the blue team is to really make it difficult for the attacker to start lateral movement and eventually get right to the crown jewel, right? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the philosophies we have in our security team, the assume breach model, right? We know that an attacker with the right level of resources, enough resources, motivation, will eventually get in. But it's our task to make sure that once they get in, once they have that initial foothold, they cannot accomplish their goals, which could be data exfiltration, it could be whatever the attacker is going after. So the way we accomplish that is by focusing our effort a lot in detection and response, as well as prevention, but putting an extra effort in detection and response. And we kind of flip the table to the attackers now, because now before they only have to be right once,
yes,
and we have to rewrite all the time. But now, once they're in, they only have to make one mistake, and then we catch them, right? And for that, I think really important is to improve visibility, improve detection and response capabilities. So that's another task where Pentera comes in to help us. So what we want to achieve with Pentera in the next 3 to 6 months is overhaul our purple team use case, our purple team effort. So the ability to perform unit testing on all our detection controls, and to make sure that our telemetry is working the right way, this data is going to the right place, to our central location like our SIM, and most importantly, once the SIM triggers an alert, to make sure that our response team, our SOC, is actually investigating these alerts and really following through the process that we have laid out. So we're testing the full stack. If the tool works, if the telemetry is being sent to the right place, and if the stock is following the right playbook on the alert. So purple teaming is a really big task for us, and I think Pentera will make a big value. We'll add a big value there.
Another use case that I know you're using heavily and provide you the ongoing validation is the single or targeted action. Maybe you can share more about how you leverage this capability.
Yeah, of course. I think it's really important to be able to run single actions on a particular attack on a continuous basis. So, for example, one simple single action that we're using in our network is the network share discovery, right? We've seen several times where our users or sysadmins or developers sometimes open shares on their own computers or their own servers to make it available certain folders, certain files to other people in the network. But sometimes, unfortunately, there's sensitive information in these shared folders. So the ability for us to search across the entire network, across these file shares, and see if there's something sensitive is very important. We used to do this, and I used to have a person writing a script and running this, 2 or 3, maybe once a week, and it would take them maybe 2 or 3 hours to just schedule the task, go through the results, maybe tune the script. But now with Pentera, we're able to schedule this assessment and then just let it run, come back on Monday morning, go through the results, and identify sensitive information. So I think being able to run a single action on a frequent basis, so for example once a week or once a day or however you guys are comfortable with, is really powerful and allows us to be on top of what's being shared across the network. And we've had a good success there. We found things that shouldn't be there, we've closed them down, but of course we continue to do it, right? It's part of the ongoing, because as the company is changing, as users come in, as new systems come up, there's new things that are being shared, and some of that data is sensitive, and we need to be on top of it so that attackers won't find them.
That's an excellent use case, right? So the ability to have that ongoing, right, automate that, frees time for your team to do the higher value. And what we are seeing from engaging with hundreds of customers worldwide, it really boils down to the basics of security, right? So even tiny misconfiguration, lack of segmentation, and weak passwords are the easiest way for an attacker to be successful in the network.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it goes back to the basics, but an attacker is going to be able to leverage that small misconfiguration and maybe complement it with other attacks and be able to achieve their goals. So I think we need to be on top of all those simple things that are like you said, going back to the basics. I don't no longer have to task my team on doing these validations themselves, which can be repetitive, can take time, and are taking us away from other priorities. So maybe some other more important things that we need to do. So now, instead of them running the tasks, now all they have to do is just read the reports that we get from Pantera, and based on that, perform mitigations or follow-up actions that we may need to do.
Let's get back to the purple team. The ability to run different attack scenario that might, look into specific threat actors from the MITRE framework, but then really sit with the blue team, right? See the detection side and, both train the SOC on incident response, but also how you improve, right, the detection and response. We see that as a primary use case as well.
Yeah, I think purple teaming in general is a big effort that we've started implementing 2 years ago at Blackstone, and the main goal is to first identify new detection analytics, so identify new ways of detecting the attacker, but 2, make sure that the detection analytic that you have deployed is actually working, and 3, make sure that your response process is being properly followed. So those 3 main action items we want to take, automation helps a lot, right? And just like software engineering, where you need to unit test certain features or to find issues on your code, we use unit testing to make sure our detection program is working as expected. So the main goal is to test each one of the behaviors for which we have detections for and make sure they're working, right?
Yeah.
So the ability to test this on a frequent basis and make sure that the tools are working, that the telemetry and the data flow is working, and that the response process is being properly followed is a key part of our program. We need to make sure that these are working, because when an attacker actually gets in, and if this process is not working, that could be the difference between detecting them and booting them out of your network versus a full breach.
You've been using Pentera for a while. What's Pentera for you?
I think Pentera is an extension of our team. Pentera allows us to confirm that both our prevention controls and detection controls are working as expected. Any change in our network, in our policies, could break something. So Pentera gives us the peace in mind to make sure that all those controls are properly working. And I think one important thing for me in particular is our detection controls, because there's so many things that could be working on this data flow for detection controls. Maybe the tool broke, the policy broke, maybe the telemetry is not getting to the right place, or maybe the response process is not working. So Pentera allows me to confirm that all this stack is working in a frequent basis. Not just once, not just every time we hire a pen test, not just every time we hire a red team or a purple team, just on a frequent basis, so weekly.
That's a great use case. It's almost like a purple team for the masses, right?
Purple team for the masses, you said it, Ran.
Thank you so much for sharing all that useful information with us.
Thanks, Ran.
It was great having you here.
Happy to be here. Thank you.